Hey, welcome back to Featherwood Farm. I wanted to do kind of a 2024 in review video, very much for myself, to see all the progress made in the gardens, but also to share with all of you kind of a way to share what is possible to accomplish in the span of a year with a little bit of determination. A lot of the focus this year was in the raised bed cottage garden area, where I increased the number of beds I was growing in from 8 to 12, so that's been nice. Probably the largest project I have ever undertaken was constructing the picket fence, something like 150 feet, I think, where I individually ripped and chopped each picket to size. When I was designing this project, I was so incredibly optimistic. I think I was just blinded by what the end result would be, but it was so much work. So much work, and honestly, I still have some work left to do on it. I started it in, I think, mid March of 24, and it looks like it will take me over a year to fully complete it. I still have a small portion to finish, a gate to build, and staining still needs to happen. But the result is 100% worth it, and it just makes the whole space come together and feel like its own kind of garden within a garden. And aesthetics aside, it was necessary to keep the chickens out of the beds as well as deter the rabbits and the deer. And even with knowing the amount of work, I would do it all again, undoubtedly. I think it's also important to share kind of the routine, mundane stuff, like the spring cleanup. It's small, but it always feels like an accomplishment when you're doing it. And it's a more accurate depiction of what gardening entails. You know, these are the types of things that most of your time is going to be spent on: the weeding, trimming, cutting back. And if you can't find the enjoyment in these tasks, then gardening just might not be for you. Fortunately, I love this stuff. In the front garden here, I can just tell from this clip that my sprinter boxwood hedge has put on a decent amount of growth, which is really exciting. I have yet to trim them. I've never trimmed them yet, but I think this year I will give it a nice cut and encourage some fresh growth on those. And of course, lots of seeds were started this year, both cut flower and veggies. Um, this year in 25, I want to keep more detailed numbers on what I start versus what germinates versus what actually makes it into the gardens. I think it would just be a nice reference to kind of look back on and help inform future decisions. I feel like for me, and I'm sure lots of you out there, spring is like the most anticipated time of year in the garden. And when you start seeing the little flushes of green emerging, whether it's from spring bulbs or early perennials, and you know, your flowering trees are starting to put on their show, every day becomes better than the previous day. Last year, I made the decision to decrease the amount of space I was giving for cut flowers, and I converted this area that I was using into an orchard instead. But I did plant lots of tulips and daffodils and peonies in between the rows of trees, so that's been nice. And for us here in central Michigan, it was a very early start to spring, and I was able to get a jump start on a lot of my spring planting, lots of plugs and bare roots this year. Another big project was creating this new garden bed that wraps around the deck. I made a throughway from the front of the fence to the backyard and still need to build a gate for that. This garden was kind of part reviving existing beds and connecting them with new ones and other existing ones and putting the finishing touches on that. I ordered 4 yards of large stones and used them for the border, which I really, really liked. And now I plan on ordering more and putting them in other garden beds. It helps keep some of the mulch in from the chicken scratching, so that's nice. And it's easier to maintain. All I have to do is use the weed whack quickly around them versus bringing out the edger, which I really appreciate. I kept the planting simple with just a hydrangea hedge, some grasses, and a few easy perennials in the purple and yellow color scheme. Things that don't require much maintenance, like nepitas and asters, but also that the pollinators really benefit from. And we got a beautiful fountain from a local nursery, I think in May, and installed that right off the deck. And it's just been such a joy watching the birds bathe in it and drink from it in the summer. Lots of robins, especially, were taking full advantage of it, but We also got to enjoy like goldfinches, house finches, which are the cute little pink and brown ones, and a whole bunch more. And of course, there was also some making over in the beds in the redbud garden. We purchased a multi-stem serviceberry, a multi-stem redbud, and a Siberian spruce from a local nursery and got those planted, and then kind of worked on bringing some cohesion to the area. The bed on the right is really the only empty space I have to plant in this year, which is pretty exciting. My budget is going to appreciate that. I'm trying to be more conscious of the plants I am bringing in, as I want to aim for more repetition, as well as focusing on things that the deer and rabbits tend to leave alone, which may end up meaning that the garden isn't as varied as I would maybe like, but the beauty and the function will still be there. And then back to the picket fence. Even staining it proved to be more work than I anticipated, and it's still not done. But yes, 2025 will be the year of a completed picket fence. I knew for this gate entry right here, which is road facing, I wanted more of a statement, so I decided to build this arbor with the gate kind of built into it, painted that black to match everything. This project actually came together fairly easily and quickly, and my sketches and planning for it were pretty minimal. I actually kind of winged a lot of it. I have an Eden climber rose on the left inner side, which I'm hoping to train up and around the arbor, so that would be nice. And this year I also want to keep my eye out for something that could act as like a chandelier of sorts and be hung from the inner peak of the arbor and maybe string some solar lights on it. I don't know, we'll see. It's funny, but even still, like every time I walk through the gate, it just makes me smile. It's so simple and yet created such a wonderful visual impact, and it just feels like a true finishing touch for this area, despite the fact that the fence around it still needs staining and finishing. The last garden bed project I undertook last year was this area in front of the orchard and cottage garden. I just simplified the planting with perennials that could tolerate some inundation and cleaned up the edge and added a partial stone border here as well. I need to purchase more rocks to complete it, so that will happen this year. And then the final project of the year was building this pergola. It was a really simple design using just a few materials. It went up quickly as well and also didn't involve a whole lot of planning. And of course was painted black. I have a climbing rose planted at the single post on the left side and then some clematis along the back. And the goal is that they're going to grow up the structure across the top and then create a shaded canopy over kind of the brick patio area, which will be really, really nice. Yeah, and so that kind of wraps up 2024. And now I'm working on my plans for 2025, which I don't think are going to be quite as grandiose, but will still be fun and some that are necessary. And yeah, I'm just getting really excited and giddy with anticipation. But thank you for joining me today, and we'll see you in the next video.